Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, my name is Diptii Shah and welcome to my show Artistry. Today I have with me Miss Amrita Tandon, whose paintings you just saw in the video. She excels at creating amazing pieces of abstract art. Hello Amrita and welcome to my show.
Hi, Diptii. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
My pleasure. Amrita, you are an artist. First of all, please tell us, what is art to you?
Art is basically expression or application of human creative skill and imagination for creating something of beauty and emotional power. And art is an act of expressing feelings and thoughts and observations, but in its broadest sense, it is like a form of communication. It is shaped by the intentions of the artist as well as the feelings it endangers in the viewer. Art can mean whatever the artist intends it to mean and the meaning that the viewer derives from it. But the underlying intention is to appeal and to connect with human emotion.
That was beautiful, Amrita. Can you tell us when and how did your art journey begin?
Okay, I will give you the long answer. This reminds me about an anecdote about this woman who approached Picasso in a restaurant and asked him, "Can you scribble something on a napkin?" And she said, "I'll be happy to pay whatever you think it's worth." And he complied and said, "Okay, this will be $10,000. And she was astonished. And she said, "But that took you like 20 seconds. And he said, "No, it took me 40 years to get here." So, to answer your question, my journey in art probably began long before I started drawing and painting. It probably began when I consciously started to observe and distill information. Because what I paint today isn't really what I see today, but impressions and memories and emotions I've gathered over a lifetime. But a little about my history. I think I did 2 years of art in school, but I chose commerce instead. And because I loved accounting, which is diagrammatically opposite to art, but I got a bachelor's degree in commerce. But even during college, I explored both the fields. I did an internship with a bank, but I also worked on a television serial. And eventually, I did a post graduation in mass communication and joined advertising, but again in the creative side in ad filmmaking. And then I got married and we moved from country to country and we traveled. And I think this exposed me to different cultures, to aesthetics, to landscapes, ideas. I used to visit museums and galleries and art shows. But when my daughter was a few years old, then I thought of getting back to like a formal art education. But at that stage, we were back in India. And the concept of adult education or returning student doesn't really exist. So I decided to be mentored by a artist instead. And with her, I explored art history, the old masters, contemporary artists, techniques, materials, and we just talk about art and ideas. And I started drawing and painting. But again, from very basics, like I draw shapes and flowers, that I moved on to still lifes and landscapes and human figures. At that stage, we moved to Australia, and that is the time I found that I started seeing things differently and having opinions of my own and a more discerning eye. But I still experimenting and evolving and gaining confidence. But all through this, right from the beginning, I was very blessed to have people who believed in me, and I'd had exhibitions right from the beginning. Not to say that anyone bought my art in the first few years, but then a friend bought two large paintings, and then someone else bought, and on and on. And people started commissioning works and had returning clientele. So I've just grown from there. But I don't think my journey will ever end. I can never say, I've arrived, because I think that would be the end of me as an artist.
So, friends always help with the first step, isn't it?
Yes, I'm very happy that I had a support system and people who believed in me when I was just starting off.
So, Amrita, why did you choose painting? Why do you paint? And did you
Um,
always know that you wanted to be a painter?
well, I've always felt the need to express myself creatively, and for different people, it takes different forms: poetry, or prose, or sculpture, or dancing. Paint is just the medium I chose to express my ideas, but I've always wanted to try materials of different kinds. In fact, every time I go on a walk or a hike, I carry a bag with me, and I'm always collecting like stones and shells and leaves and seed pods. And I come home and I would try and make something out of it, or just study their texture and their color and their form to try and incorporate them into my paintings. But to answer your question, did I always know I wanted to be a painter? No. But I think over time, I've found that painting is what gives me the most joy and freedom of expression. And I count myself among the lucky few who has found something they love to do. In fact, I go to bed eager to wake up the next day and to make my art. And I no longer understand the concept of Monday morning blues because I'm always eager to go back to my work. And in fact, on the days that I have something else to do and I can't get into my studio, I'm almost like an alcoholic obsessing about his next drink. When can I do my painting again? And sometimes I even get up in the middle of the night and have some brilliant idea I want to try out. And I have to say, no, relax, you can get to it in the morning.
How awesome is that? Doing the work that you love and you're passionate about and looking forward to it every day. Just
Yes, I
the
think
type
I'm
of work
blessed.
we all should do, isn't it?
Yes.
So, what does a typical day in the life of an artist look like? Do you have any routines? Do you follow any discipline, any practice that keeps you inspired to share with us?
Oh, thank you. Uh, well, actually, I'm a voracious reader, and it's the first thing I do in the morning with my cup of tea, and it's the last thing I do at night. I'm not an early bird, I'm more of a night owl, but as soon as I'm dressed in the morning, I'm like working on my art. And I usually work while there's still natural light. So in winter, it's probably by 4 o'clock I pack up. I do have to spend time on things I don't enjoy, like updating my website, social media posts, maintaining records, correspondence, reaching out to galleries and stuff like that. But the evenings I do keep for going for walks in the hills behind my house or the beach, because I find it's a great time to distill ideas, or to just observe the natural world, or just to catch up on the news. And I'm very lucky I live right next to the water. So sometimes I go snorkeling in the cove outside my house. And I think the sea is such an inspiration. And there's so many different kind of multicolored fish. There's sea urchins, there's coral. And I find that really inspiring and relaxing. In fact, I've done quite a few paintings, abstract paintings, which are about the sea and just the mountains around me. Do I meditate? Not in the traditional sense, but my art does involve looking inwards and sometimes emptying my mind of superfluous entanglements and just focusing on the moment. So I could say my art is my meditation.
So beautifully described.
Thank you.
My next question is very pertinent. Can art be taught, or is it only a gift for a selected few?
Now, technique can be taught. Skill comes with practice, but talent, I think, is innate. I mean, a classroom can spoon feed you, but there's nothing that you can't learn on your own, especially today's world where information is available at your fingertips. And it just might take you longer to get there. And I feel our senses are constantly being fed with new ideas. So just always observe and keep your mind open. And art education, I feel, should not be restricted just to the classroom or to museums or gallery visits. Art is all around you. So just keep watching, keep observing.
So a self-taught artist is actually a thing.
Yes, very much. There are lots of artists in this world who are self-taught. Van Gogh never went to art school.
So Amrita, you're born and brought up in India. You've lived quite a long time in India, and then you moved out to different countries. How has travel within and outside India influenced you as a person, and how does that reflect in your art?
Uh, Travel, in the most obvious ways, has exposed me to different cultures, people, flora, fauna, landscapes, experiences, food. But I think it's always also taught me to be adaptive, to be experimental, to let things go, not to cling to material possessions, to observe, not to be judgmental, to avoid preconceived ideas. And all these things, I think, either overtly or subliminally have found their way into my art.
Sure, sure. It does happen, right? Everything seeps into us, within us, subconsciously, and comes out in ways that we do not know or are not aware of.
Yeah, sometimes it's not the most obvious.
Yeah, it's not the most obvious. On a lighter note, Amrita, who has been your favorite artist? And out of all the genres that you paint in, which is your favorite?
Um, I cannot pinpoint an artist who would be my favorite, but I do love Impressionism and Post Impressionism as an art movement. And these are artists like Renoir, Monet, Degas, uh, Van Gogh, Gauguin, Cézanne. Uh, Maybe because my first exposure to fine art was through these coffee table books my grandparents had in their house. Or maybe because the Impressionists were the first radicals that broke away from the rules of academic painting. Uh, they're the ones who first saw things differently, and their art was an art of immediacy. It was about movement, it was about candid poses and composition and the play of light, and they use bright and varied colors. And they moved away from these stilted pose portraits, and their paintings are about everyday life. In fact, if you look at some of them, it's almost as if life is frozen for a second and then is about to start moving again.
For a novice like me, could you please define what is abstract art? And how is abstract art different from other genres?
Abstract art is art that does not attempt to represent an accurate depiction of a visual reality. Instead, it uses shapes and colors and forms and gestural marks to achieve its effect. Strictly speaking, abstract means to separate or to withdraw something from itself. And it literally means distancing of the idea from its objective references. This means that the visual arts pull a depiction away from uh, literal reference points. But again, in abstract art, there are degrees of abstraction. There are artworks where you can actually recognize the object or the scene, and there are others which are more esoteric. And the term can be applied to art that is based on object, figure, landscape, where the forms are slightly simplified, or it can be applied to art that uses forms such as geometric shapes or even just gestural marks, where there's no source of actual external reality. And this is also called non representational art or non objective art. So, abstract art is an interpretation of what you see or an expression of your thoughts and your ideas and your emotions. In fact, abstract art can be traced back to the Impressionists or the post Impressionists and the Cubists. They're the first ones to move away from your academic painting. And they still depended on the visual world for their subject matter, but they opened the doors for an extreme approach to abstraction. In fact, the first abstract painting was made by a woman called Wilma of Clint in 1906. And from there, the world of abstraction started. And then you have different genres. You have expressionism, which there's Kandinsky, there was Mondrian, there's Paul Klee. Then there were action and or gestural painters like Jackson Pollock. And Rothko developed this concept of something called color field painting, which are just great swaths of color interacting with each other. And abstract art uses the tools of color, of line, of rhythm, of shape, of composition to create feelings of emotion and thought in the viewer. And this has led to different styles of abstract painting and different approaches because you're so unbound by the actual world, the real world as you see it. That's why there's such a great diversity in abstract art. And I think the continuing interest in art lies in the ability to inspire our curiosity about how far our imagination can reach and how we can create something truly unique in this world.
Sure.
And abstract art can actually mean anything you want it to mean. And it lies in the eyes of the mind of the creator, actually, and in the eyes of the viewer.
Sure, sure. Very beautifully explained, actually.
Yeah.
When I enter a gallery or when I look at an abstract painting, how do I start to appreciate it?
Yeah. So beauty in terms of art usually refers to the interaction between line and color and texture and sound, motion, shape, and size that the mind finds pleasing. But sometimes beauty is not the end goal of an artist. He's often trying to connect with human emotion, and uh, he might be trying to stimulate some feelings, some religious faith, curiosity, identification with his viewers. So, in the end, appreciation or liking of something is innate, and the art will speak to you or it won't. But yes, uh, being educated about art does help to alter your perception and understanding of it. I would say pick a gallery or an exhibition, read about the artist, his background, and try and find out what he's trying to convey. And armed with this information, go and explore his paintings, and you will find that you form a different opinion of his work and have a different understanding of it. Um, for example, recently I went for an exhibition of Lalan at the Asia Society, and I did know a little about her, but I read up further, and we had this lovely guide at the society. And I thought through that I got so much more information about her and understanding. I could have gone without having read up about her, but it would have just been about beautiful pictures. But her paintings mean so much more than that. Uh, so I would say just be slightly informed when you look at art. Uh, I would give an example outside the field of painting. Take example uh, James Joyce, Ulysses, which is considered the most brilliant book written, I think. Would you enjoy it on its own? Yes. Would you understand it? Maybe on the surface. But if you had some knowledge of Homer's Odyssey, you would understand the book so much better. So, to appreciate the full depth of art, especially abstract art, know the context and the background.
Those are actually very useful, very practical tips, for a novice to start his art journey.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, of
But
appreciation.
I would add something else. I would say don't let your tastes and your choice be dictated by the pundits of the art industry. In fact, sometimes one is shamed into thinking your tastes are too plebeian and you ought to like a particular kind of art which is considered highbrow. But art is so subjective that not everyone will like everything. I, as an artist, don't much care for installation art. Uh, so go with what you like and don't listen to the hype or, you know, s- only go for what is popular and the latest. It might not speak to you.
Sure, sure, absolutely. When you talk about the art industry, uh, who or what are the main elements that make up this business of art?
Um, I think Da Vinci would not recognize the art world of today. In the earlier days, it was the artist. He was commissioned by either the church, a king, or a wealthy patron to create an artwork. And he would buy the canvas himself or the wood panel. He would prime it, maybe stretch it, prepare the pigments himself, and paint and deliver it to the client. But now the scene has changed so much. So, besides the artists, you have gallerists, there are people who own and run and work in galleries. There's curators who are, they might work for a gallery or be independent, and they're the people who decide what art should be shown, where it should be shown, and when and how it should be displayed. And then you have art advisory firms, which are uh, people who actually advise private individuals and museums and foundations on art that they should buy. And in fact, even in banking, in wealth management, they have advisors who can actually uh, advise high network individuals to invest in art. And then you have the concept of art sourcing and art licensing. There are firms who specialize in doing just that. So, say a hotel uh, wanted art for their rooms. These people would actually go around finding art, and it doesn't have to be original art, it could be print. So, they would go to the artists and get licenses to reprint this art. Then you have fine art logistics, that is the handling of art, the transportation, the storage. Then you have conservationists. Then you have framers. Uh, you have producers of art materials. Now it's a very specialized field in itself. And then you have art platforms. You have like places like Saatchi Art, Fine Art America, Etsy, where people actually go online to sell their art and avoid, a bricks and mortar art gallery. And then, of course, you have social media. Facebook and Insta actually very often take away the middleman, and the artist can actually deal directly with the client. And I think now we have what I think is one of the worst practices in the art world is platforms where you can actually invest in fractions of works of art. So say there's a Picasso. You can't afford a Picasso, but you can buy a share of Picasso. But this doesn't mean you'll actually get to hang it on your walls. It's just investing in art for the sake of investment, which I think is a horrendous practice. Uh, then, of course, you have art fairs like Art Basel, Affordable Art Fair, Contemporary Art Fair. Then there are auction houses, and then art education institutions. So the list is quite endless.
It seems like a complicated business of art. And
Uh,
pieces of art, as you own it, sounds like a
yes.
mutual fund, of an artist or something. Wow, this is
Yeah.
complicated. Yeah. In this jungle of art business, you seem to have created a niche for yourself. So, how do you work? Do you work directly, or how is it?
I, by and large, have sold art through word of mouth and through friends who have bought initially, and then people have seen my art in their houses. Sometimes it's uh, through my Facebook and Instagram posts. In fact, a lot of galleries have contacted me because they've seen my social media posts.
Okay. Okay. So, social media, it has actually worked for you and not against you. That is very nice to know. Amrita, a very important question. Why is art so expensive to buy? Is this just an elite thing that only a few can ever own or think of owning? Or will the middle class ever get to have a piece of art in their homes?
Um, I have actually rather radical views about this. I do not think art is elitist or expensive. Uh, that actually depends on the definition you give to art. Isn't a lovely sari art? Isn't a book or poetry art? And you can own all that. But in terms of fine art, uh, it's all a matter of perception. Uh, what is the value you place on it? Uh, would a woman hesitate spending a few thousand on a diamond? No, but she'd probably hesitate in buying art. Uh, why is that? And I feel art doesn't have to cost much. You don't have to go for the big names. There are small galleries which sell wonderful stuff at very affordable prices. And somehow I get the impression that people think art is overpriced, but think of the cost of production and the time that an artist spends on making that art, and he probably earns less than someone working in McDonald's.
Amitabh, coming from India, I remember my first impression of art, of any kind of art, was being dragged to an art class and given a box of crayons to, draw an apple. First draw an apple and then color it in the perfect red, and it has to have shades of green. What advice do you have for kids who want to be artists in the future, or just, at a younger age want to start exploring art?
My first advice is keep your eyes open and stay off the device. Uh, there's so much art around you, just be open to it, and do not get into this thing of going for classes. You don't need classes to begin with. uh, just draw, take a pencil, take a crayon. In fact, I started uh, with oil pastels on paper, and then when I felt I had kind of gained a little bit of mastery on that, then I moved on and bought paints. So start small. And childhood is a wonderful age of wonder. I mean, you're not bogged down by, you know, going to classes and learning things in a certain way. Just experiment. Uh, in fact, I would tell parents, encourage your kids. Art is so important, and it didn't have to be painting. It can be dancing. It can be playing an instrument. Just explore it. In fact, there was this palliative care nurse called Bronnie Ware who would ask her dying patients what they regretted most in their life. And a common theme emerged. And people said, I wish I had the courage to live the life true to myself and not what others expected of me. So if art is your thing, go for it.
That sounds like a very wise advice. No art classes, guys. First experiment.
Yes, definitely.
On that note, Amrita, thank you so much for taking the time out and speaking with me on my show. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It is a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, my name is Diptii Shah, and thank you for watching my channel. If you like the content that I create here and the amazing people who come on the show, Artistry, then please subscribe to my channel and keep visiting it. Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it.